I've always loved the look of vintage sports trading cards, but never really had a reason to design any until now. Because in this video, I'm going to be designing trading cards for some of my favorite artists and designers. This video is also sponsored by Skillshare, but more on that later. Before you go telling me he's not a graphic designer, I know, not in the traditional sense, but I think as an artist, he's someone who's paved the way for a lot of design in the contemporary world. And stylistically, I feel like a lot of his work could be seen as design nowadays, and he's a big inspiration to me, even though he's more of a traditional artist. I love Andy Warhol because he has such a unique and simplistic style, and when he was producing it at the time, it was not very common in fine art to be doing like silkscreen printing and mass production. You know, the medium itself that he created in also helped spread the messages of like what he was trying to talk about with like hypercapitalism and mass producing and stuff by printing all those Campbell's cans and things like that. And I mean, no one has more of an iconic style probably than Andy Warhol. You see that pop art style and that screen printing like the Marilyn Monroe or the Campbell's can, and you instantly know it's them. And that's something I want to strive to as a designer, for being instantly recognizable by the work right when you see it. I decided for each of these that I was going to actually put the place that they're from up top, because I still wanted to follow some kind of format with making it like a sports trading cards. I knew I wanted to create this silkscreen printing style, but I went with some colors of that pop art, the kind of yellow, the Maryland actually colors inspired by, and I wanted to just distress some of the type, give it that offset printing, kind of distressing right there, just some texture and stuff, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out with the colors and the type and the overall layout. Next up is the movie poster legend Saul Bass, who's one of the designers that got me to first fall in love with design. And I did not know how cool movie posters could be until I started diving into his work. What's dope too is he basically invented title sequences. Before Saul Bass, it was just boring black, white type on a black background, said the movie and it started. And you know, he invented all those cool title sequences with letters being pulled around and cool stuff going on, cut out shapes. And what I really respected about Saul Bass is he designed a lot of amazing corporate logos as well to fund his more fun creative projects. And a little cool fun fact is Saul Bass actually directed the scene from Psycho with the stabbing in the shower. That Alfred Hitchcock let him direct that scene. It's arguably Alfred Hitchcock's most famous scene, which is pretty cool. Saul Bass's style is retro and stuff you don't see a lot these days, but the compositions are so beautiful that they still hold up. And whenever I find new pieces of his work online from some archive, I love adding it to the visual inspiration in my mind. Here's the Saul Bass design. I used some type that was actually inspired by some of his cool like cutout letters and stuff. I think this font was called Comrade, and I wanted to kind of make this one feel a little bit more like a movie poster, but still a trading card. So I incorporated these cutout blind shapes that I got inspired by one of his posters, put where he was from here with this fun, more also Saul Bass style type. And at the bottom, just a little kind of tagline about him that felt kind of like the building block at the bottom of a movie poster. Overall, I'm really happy with the colors, the layout, and I think it really captures Saul Bass's iconic style. Takashi Murakami. Like Andy Warhol, he's not a graphic designer in the traditional sense, but I think a lot of his more simplistic work is reminiscent of things that are in modern contemporary design. He has these crazy abstract art pieces, but what I really gravitate to as a designer is his more simple stuff, like, you know, obviously the iconic flower. A lot of inspiration for designers because that flower shape is so simple and iconic, and it's almost like a brand identity in itself and can be applied to furniture, patterns, pins, whatever, and build a whole universe out of them. And I think Takashi Murakami has done a great job of that. I'm sure you've heard of him before, but if you haven't, definitely go check it out. I was not even going to attempt to do some of his more abstract artwork, so I tried to keep it simple and just include some little motifs. This one follows more of that retro style baseball or basketball card. I put the nice wide stretch type at the bottom, cool little framing device. I knew I had to put a little decoration with that flower up there. Murakami has great color palettes, so I wanted to use those in the type up here with this nice like drop shadow colorful type, and I just hit the photo with a half tone to make it feel a little bit more vintage and cohesive. David Carson. When I first found out about this dude, it blew my little college designer mind because I was so ingrained from my professors about following the grid, not breaking any rules, this and that, and David Carson did the exact opposite of that. He's kind of the king of this postmodernist type with all the super cool grungy, like Swiss grit type of stuff, overlaying images, collage. I mean, in his magazine Raygun, he literally printed an article in Wingdings just to be like, fuck it, you know, because the article was so boring. Also, I have to mention from Raygun magazine, Chris Ashworth, another super dope designer who worked with David Carson. Check him out too. He posts a bunch of cool stuff on Instagram to this day. And what I love about David Carson's work is he didn't care. Like, it wasn't cool to do that at the time. He was getting hated on by like a lot of the traditional designers. And it's cool that he stood for that and pushed the design industry forward. And I love how in the modern world, I'm in such a privileged spot as a designer because we have all this old stuff to look at. I can combine styles like David Carson with the more Swiss Helvetica stuff of like Massimo Vignelli and marry the two together to create something new. And overall, David Carson just made me feel a lot more free as a designer, and I appreciate him for that, and definitely go check out a bunch of his work. This one doesn't really follow any traditional rules of sports like trading card designs, but David Carson didn't follow any rules either. So I had a lot of fun. I showed you some of the process. I printed out the photo, did some collage, rescanned it back in, printed over it again, did that again, threw some tape on there, distressed the type. I just overall tried to channel my inner David Carson and get real experimental with it and not worry about the rules at all. And I wanted to try that myself. Some of these masters of their craft are who inspired me to get into graphic design and pursue a freelance career in the first place. And what better way to learn from the masters than with today's sponsor, Skillshare. I used to grind at my day job and dream of living the life of someone like David Carson or Saul Bass and getting to create my own way every day. After going through that 9-to-5 lifestyle, I realized that those old ways of working aren't working anymore. This year, I really want to diversify my overall business strategy and make time for all the fun things I want to work on. So I'm doing classes on time management and turning your creativity into a career. Skillshare also has a bunch of other amazing classes too, like this one on the business of design with one of our featured designers in this video, Aaron Draplin. This one helped me in a huge way with invoices, contracting, file management, and basically all the other business stuff that goes into being a designer. The future can be intimidating, and I get that, but Skillshare can help you start building your dream creative career. If this all sounds cool to you, then head over to the link in the description where the first 1,000 people to join get 1 month free trial of Skillshare. I wish you all the best in your creative journey, and thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. Aaron Draplin, and who is my favorite designer and someone who got me to fall in love with design in the first place. I found out about him in a class in high school, shout out Mr. Murray, and I really loved his bold lines and logo designs and poster designs, and overall, I really liked Aaron Draplin as a human. He showed me that there's cool people in the world of design, and it's not just filled with pretentious like corporate people, and I really like how he brings this almost blue collar like industrial feel to design, and it makes it feel a lot more tactile and nice, and his logos are just beautiful. His posters are really nice, and the way he works with color and all the merch he does, his whole cohesive system, I think he's doing it right. He's such a down-to-earth guy. You know, he came onto my podcast when I had only done like 5 episodes. He had no reason to be there. Super dope, treated me with a lot of respect, and it was kind of a cool bucket list item for me at that time. So shout out the king of junking, Aaron Draplin. I wanted to follow some of his kind of more industrial style layouts, but still make it feel like a trading card. So I used Futura, loved the way it looks, Futura bold all the way throughout. Matches kind of some of the industrial type he used on his hat. Hit it with this DDC logo he has, but I just used the framing thing and throwed his name down there. Designer, junker, and human. Colorful lines down here because he did this series called Thick Lines where it was just simple poster layouts with really thick lines like that, and I wanted to use that as inspiration for the card design. Massimo Vignelli. This is who I mentioned that's on like the opposite side of the spectrum of David Carson because he is this kind of godfather of that Swiss design style and really showed me the beauty of minimal layouts, the grid, and Helvetica. Massimo also thought Helvetica was so beautiful that it was one of the 5 fonts he said that you only need and you can trash the rest. It was Helvetica, Garamond, Century, Bodoni, and Futura. I don't feel that extreme about it, but it does show you that you can create a lot of beauty and good design with a minimal type choices, color, and layout. He also did the basically impossible task of taking the crazy complicated subway system in New York and turning it into this clean layout, and is pretty much responsible for why pictures of New York look so cool with the Helvetica, with the different streets over the subway. So thank him for that, and thank him for being an amazing designer. Massimo Vignelli, simple, clean, Swiss design layout. Wanted it to feel almost like a book cover or like a really simple poster design. Had to hit it with the Neue Haus Grotesk or Helvetica, whichever one you want to use, and just lined it up, left the line to the grid. Super simple, track it in, mess with the kerning. And for down here where he's from, New York, I wanted it to feel like the circles they use on the New York subway system to kind of call back to not only his iconic design, but the city he's from. Overall, I'm really happy with this one. Another artist, but the reason I chose him, Andy Warhol, and Murakami to still show is I think their styles can influence graphic design a lot, and in the modern day are artists that I feel align with the different visuals that I like. And I just love his style. It was so simple, and I love that the medium that Keith Haring created in was created based out of like necessity and how he did it. You know, he would hop out of the train with the markers and stuff, slap it on those movie poster things when no movie poster there, or where they need to put an advertisement, draw it really quick, hop back on the train and get out of there. So he needed a style that would be able to be created in one line, fill it in real quick. And Keith Haring also taught me you can get your own style and run with it. I was never really good at drawing, so I kind of got nervous when I was starting to become a designer. Then I realized I can just lean into the skills I do like and go with it. I knew instantly when I got on this one that I was gonna do kind of a marker layout. Found this great photo of him, did the rough layout in Illustrator, and then I brought it in and retraced it with the marker brush so it could kind of get that more hand-drawn feel. Found a little PNG of his signature online, popped it in, and some of these cool fun characters I think really help frame the piece, and the iconic yellow just really pops. And this probably is like one of my favorite ones, honestly. I didn't think it was gonna be when I first started this, but this one, the Saul Bass and the Carson, I really like how those three turned out. Last, but definitely not least, Reed Miles is one of my favorite designers of all time, and he's responsible for creating the iconic album covers that Blue Note produced. Reed Miles is such an iconic designer. He developed this visual style for Blue Note that basically became like what jazz music should look like. He took an audio medium and gave it a visual to go with it. He had that gradient map on the photos, the cool type layouts, and he was just pumping those out with the photographer there at Blue Note. And like he created hundreds of cool Blue Note records, and they're just so nice to look at. I have a book with all of them. Every once in a while when I need inspiration, I just flip through it. And I think people don't give designers enough credit sometimes, and Reed Miles is probably responsible for pushing forward not only the genre of jazz, but definitely Blue Note records. Here's the Reed Miles one. I wanted to follow kind of that simple Blue Note kind of iconic layout with the gradient map image, the thing up top with the tight Franklin condensed typeface with some Clarendon right here. Usually on Blue Note records, they'd have these slashes between different artists, so I did it like that. Popped the logo in there just to give him some respect. And this is one of the only photos I ever find of Reed Miles online, so I had to use that one. But I do kind of like how he's looking away. And I cut it off right here at the top of his head because that's the kind of crop they use in a lot of the photos on the Blue Note cover. So this one was a great wrap to a fun project. I was really happy with how these all turned out. I didn't want to leave it in just a digital world, so I decided to print them out. So I thought I had the cardstock, and I looked on my Amazon right now and I ordered it to my old apartment. So I'm gonna go get some lunch and grab some over at the Staples. That paper was $16, which is absolutely insane for 100 pieces of paper. It's a little bit thicker, but shit. It was pretty cool holding the physical cards in my hands, and even though it's just some simple designs printed on some cardstock, it felt really good to finish this project and see it all the way through, and now share the process with you all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video because I had a lot of fun making it. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos in the future, and maybe try to make some designer cards of your own. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time. Peace.